Of all the global manufacturing output, only 1.5% comes from Africa. And when it comes to the ease of doing business index, African countries still lag at the bottom of the ladder. But with China's support and facilities such as this, that could be about to change. This is the Eastern Industry Zone, spanning 4 square kilometers and hosting 36 mega industries. By bringing Chinese companies to set up shop here, the Ethiopian government has paved the way to achieve its full investment potential. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. Now, Ethiopia is attempting to move from an agrarian economy to a manufacturing hub. In order to do that, it has created special economic zones to attract investment. This is one of those zones, the Eastern Industry Zone. It is hosting 36 factories here and creating thousands of jobs. To tell me more about this, I'm now joined by Mr. Chow. He's the Vice Director here. Mr. Chow, thank you very much for your time. Now, what exactly is a special economic zone?
Eastern Industry Zone, as we built this, is first in Ethiopia. And we built this, we want to build a good stage for the investor. And we know that Ethiopian government now give more attention about the foreign investor. And here, this is a very good stage. We start this zone, we get land from government is from 2008. 2009 we start the construction. Now inside this industry zone, we have more than 30 manufacturing. Now we built this, one is Ethiopian. Now they need more investor come here. And not only Ethiopian government, also the China government now One Belt, One Road, you know that new policy. Before 8 years, that time is not more investor come here. But now by both of governments, they support this. Last year and this year is the investor invest here. Number of manufacturing is increased and very fast. I hope that next year will more better than before.
You talked about the Ethiopian policy. How does the preferential policy work here?
Before we come here, the Ethiopian government, they have the preferential policy like tax holiday, like different industry, they have different incentive policy. When we built this zone, like the tax holiday, is 2 years more than the outside, more than others. Not only this, and the Ethiopian government give us the good support. Outside, the power supplier is difficult. Even the government knows that. But this industry zone, we get good support. We built this our own substation, and non-stop we can supply power. This is another. And third is Ethiopia is no seaport. All the cargo import from Djibouti. Industry zone, the government treats us as a destination port. The investor, they can import their cargo from China, from anywhere, direct by multimodal to their factory and take inspection on site. This is a very good condition for the investor.
What does this mean for job creation for Ethiopia?
We import most of the company, they have their own technology. So for transfer the knowledge, is very good. Here, the local person, they work here. Next year, after next year, these workers, they can show others and the Ethiopian local manufacturing, they can do what here now we can. Yeah. Some companies, they export their product, can have more foreign currency. And also this is experience. Yeah, this is experience how to develop the industry. And we have this experience in China. It's through 30 years. Now in short time, the Ethiopian government can know this. For this also, as your question, do industry to build industry, this not only for Ethiopia. If you give good preferential policy, if you give enough support, I think in any African country, they can do same like this.
Mr. Chow, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, as Mr. Chow has just mentioned, Eastern Industry Zone has created thousands of jobs in the manufacturing sector, and shoemaking is one of the more successful partnerships. Huaqian Shoes is a Chinese company now based here. They are aiming to make Ethiopia a global hub for footwear manufacture.
It has been more than 3 years since the Chinese shoemaker Huaqian set up shop 30 kilometers outside of Addis Ababa, and the partnership is paying off. The International Monetary Fund has cited the factory as the biggest example of Chinese investment and job creation in Ethiopia.
At the beginning of the investments, we were looking for a way to adapt to the new environment here in Ethiopia. Then we divided this company into many departments so that they can manage the process by themselves. We found that this would be the best way for the company to be successful.
More than 4,000 people work here. For them, it's an opportunity to boost their skills.
The work we do here has international quality standards. We are also learning a lot of things in this company in the aspect of technology. Apart from the very good job opportunity we have got here, our work gets exported to America and Europe.
Besides on-job training, we also select some of the tireless, hardworking and serious employees and take them to China for training. The training program focuses on the Chinese language and also about industry and culture.
Huaqian also provides specialized training.
Besides of the on-job training, we also select some of the talents who are working hardly and seriously in the workshop and take them to go to China for the training. The training program is about focus on the language training. For example, the Chinese language training, the language, and about the industry culture.
And now Huaqian's success is leading to even more investment. The company has committed to jointly invest $2 billion over the next decade to create another light manufacturing special economic zone in Addis Ababa, affectionately known as Shoe City.
首先这边的这个正常生产，包括我们有熟练的员工。
We have accumulated a lot of experience from this operation in terms of production and management here at the Eastern Industrial Zone. This will be of much use in our new light industry park. We are currently working on power and water supplies, and we expect it to be up and running next year.
尽快把它建设起来，厂房尽快的开始起来。那么这是我们目前首要当务之急的一个任务。
Success stories like this in Ethiopia are not limited to Huaqian Shoes. And with the launch of their new special economic zone, more Chinese investment is likely to follow suit, creating jobs in the short term and building Ethiopia's local capacity in the long term. Grumtala CCTV, Ethiopia.
This is Tadek. He's a technician here at Lifan Motors, which is one of the factories inside the Eastern Industry Park. Tadek, what exactly do you do here?
I'm exactly working in finishing time, the checking system, which one is called wheel alignment. That is just the two out and the two in. The next one is sliding system. We'll check that one. The third one is headlamp adjustment and the angle of the steering system. And the next what I do, the brake system. Brake system, the front brake and the rear brake, how much is applied. It is good or not good, I will check that one. Nextly, and check the gas system, which is the carbon to out the environment. Is that fuel and air is exactly compares or not, and just check. And finally, the speed system. That speed system, how much speed per hour that will check it, especially.
All right. How long have you worked here, though?
5 years.
So what's been the benefit of your work here?
Okay, working in this area or in Lifa Motors, personally, my benefit is the lifestyle, change my lifestyle. Freely I live life, and I help my parents especially. That is my benefit.
All right. And that is how these investments are helping not only boost Ethiopia's economic landscape, but also having an impact on people's personal lives. Now, after the break, my expert guests will help me unpack Africa's investment climate and how China's efforts are helping to make this even more attractive. To stay with us. In this discussion, I have expert guests standing by. In Nairobi, independent economic analyst David Awiro. In Johannesburg, Chris Hart. He's a global investment strategist at the Standard Bank Wealth and Investment. And in Beijing, Professor Ho Wenping. She's a research fellow at the Institute of West Asian and African Studies. Thank you all for joining in the conversation. David, to you first, though. Africa is talking about industrialization as the next phase of development for the continent. What is behind the special economic zones like what we're seeing now appearing in Ethiopia?
Well, thank you. The core strategy is on setting up special economic zones is actually as part of the development strategy for nations. And it's hinged on the belief or the strategy that if countries are able to expand their exports into the world, then they can be able to faster achieve economic development. And so the most of the economies are setting up special economic zones in order to provide incentives, particularly to do with tax breaks and so forth, to foreign companies to come and set up within their nations so that they can enhance the economic output, especially in terms of export commodities. And so this is a broad-based strategy that is part of the export-oriented growth and development strategy.
All right, Chris, though, are you seeing much of manufacturing industries now starting to take root in Africa?
I think Africa is struggling to attract manufacturing to its shores because largely Africa hasn't actually managed to achieve the same competitiveness that the Asian countries have achieved. Particularly China, but more recently in India and other countries like Vietnam and Thailand and Indonesia. They've managed to achieve much higher levels of productivity and competitiveness. And Africa is, in a sense, trying to play some catch-up on this. And this is why one sets up the special economic zone, is to try and at least create a node that is you've got greater competitiveness from an investment attractiveness point of view than, say, the rest of the country.
All right. Professor Ho Wenping, let's take the example of China, though, and of course, this Chinese-initiated industrial park that have now come up in Ethiopia's manufacturing sector. What can be learned from the Chinese initiative?
I had the chance to visit this Oriental Industrial Park based in Addis for at least 4 times. So I have witnessed this development of this Oriental Industrial Park. According to my observation, I think the industrial park itself can generate a lot of output from. One is, of course, the Chinese investment, and also this is a cluster investment. They're coming from different industrial background, like food processing industry, like this shoe making industry, and cement factory. So there are a number of those different industries. Now they are based in that park, and then they can also bring about those technical know-how, and then easy to deliver, like technical transfer, and train the local staff, local workers, to improve their working skills in a very speedy way. So through those industrial park development, and then the local industrial level can be improved in a very speedy way.
All right. David, though, Chris did mention earlier on that some African countries are struggling to industrialize there, though. But a country like Ethiopia, if we take that example, though, is becoming a very attractive destination for that type of investment. What is it that is making a country like Ethiopia an attractive investment destination?
I think this is something that has been very interesting to observe. It could be partly due to the kind of economic policies that they have and the kind of government leadership that they have. Because one of the things that investors look for is stability in terms of the political and economic environment. And one thing that Ethiopia has been able to offer consistently has been that they through their land policy, they are very specific about it. Land ownership is strictly by government. And so most investors find that to be an assurance, because once you are allocated specific land opportunities to exploit agricultural or manufacturing, it tends to be, very sure. Secondly, if you look at the exact positioning of Ethiopia, geographically, it's a big advantage.
Right.
It has access to the world markets through the kind of opportunities that the Ethiopian government is privy to. And so, again, investors find that to be strategic, because by setting up in Ethiopia, they're able to exploit both the trade avenues that Ethiopia is privy to, but more importantly, also to have these advantages in terms of the incentive systems that the Ethiopian government has been able to put in place.
Right. Chris, I want to come back, though, to the whole question of why Africa has not been able to industrialize as fast as other countries like in Asia, for instance. Now, Africa just commands about 1.5% share of the world's total manufacturing output. Is it growing, though? Is it likely to grow?
I think if you look at, when you look at competitiveness reports, say from the World Economic Forum's competitiveness, Africa tends to occupy the bottom half of those tables. Economic freedom, they occupy the bottom half. In other words, Africa's not an easy place to invest and do business. Ease of doing business, same thing, World Banks and various things. This is where the Chinese really got it right in their special economic zones. Overall, China is not an easy place to do business, but they really have created special economic zones that have actually generated enormous amount of economic freedom, and they've taken off, and they really have generated it. So the fact that the Chinese are behind the Ethiopian industrial park there is, and special economic zone, I think is particularly encouraging, and the success over the past 3 decades actually shows. So basically these special economic zones, where Africa needs to start moving is to say, can we create a node where the economic freedom is better, and your tenure is secure? All of these things that make a successful economy, you need to actually create in these nodes. And in some countries there's more political will, there's less political will in others. Ethiopia's got that political will, but of course for the country as a whole, to invoke those reforms for the whole country is politically difficult.
Are there other examples, though, in other countries, Chris? Are there examples in other countries where these economic zones have worked?
Well, in Mauritius they have. There's special economic zones, and Mauritius has actually done very well. and that's again part of Africa. And I think they've been trying, in Ghana, they haven't quite taken off as they do need, and in other countries. But basically, Ethiopia is where it seems to be gaining some momentum, and it's probably because they've got the right backers in that particular zone.
All right. David, Chris is pointing out that Africa still remains or still has the perception that it is not an easy place to do business. Is that still a perception that holds?
Yes, it is. It's a perception that holds because and as has been pointed out by Chris and even Professor Ho, political will and economic stability plays a very, very big role in determining the success of special economic zones. Basically, what nations within or which choose to set up special economic zones are telling the world is that, look, if you come and invest in our country, we'll guarantee you a stable economic framework, predictable and reliable political stability, and we'll also guarantee you certain incentives that make ours the best place to put your investment in. And so a big determinant of whether this strategy succeeds or fails is in the existing political context. So one always has to, when looking at the success of special economic zones, they have to balance these gains away from the incentives that basically are sacrifices that countries are giving up. So achieving this mix has always not been so easy.
All right, so Chris, do you get the sense, though, that at some stage, though, industries or foreign investors are becoming more comfortable with the continent to actually relocate their productions to Africa, as seen with these economic zones?
The irony is because Africa has that perception of being difficult, there are actually, where you've got the political will and the political stability, in many instances the political risk in Africa is in fact lower than countries even in Europe. And the reason is that you're given tax incentives, you're given the red carpet treatment, etc., as an investor, whereas where you've got countries that are under incredible fiscal pressure, like France, for instance, the political establishment is desperate for extra tax revenues, etc., so they look at their industry as sitting ducks, and they've got very high tax rates, etc. So in that sense, there's an advantage as countries come under increasing fiscal strain, particularly in Europe and the developed world, that Africa can actually offer lower political risk because they actually offer better guarantees than target their actual economic base, because their political promises don't exceed what their tax base can deliver. And so you've got far more modest demands on the fiscus in many of your African countries, especially where it's kept under control.
All right, Professor Ho, though, China's role in this, apart from creating these special economic zones in Africa, China has said it is willing to lend the technical support to promote industrialization, as well as support projects on the African continent. Do you think, though, that Africa can become a viable production base in the same way as China was for labor-intensive productions? And what would be needed here from Africa?
Yes, I think Africa has a huge potential to be another, even the world base for the industrialization, for those manufactured goods. I think years ago when I joined those World Economic Forum, like Dubai, those meeting, or in Africa, those summit meeting, a lot of people talking about a big transfer. That is, the manufacture will be transferred from Asian countries like from China now all the way to Africa. And it's also saying as large as like 80 million new jobs will be created in African continent with this transfer of this manufacture industry. So this special economic zone, I think it can be regarded as an entrance point, because you cannot develop all those industrializations simultaneously in each country, even in everywhere in a single country. So you have to find some places, now they are becoming the pilot one. They play the leading role. And then trying, like in China, our special zone has served as a try and error area also for the whole country's development.
All right. David, though, is Africa then, in that sense, is Africa ready for industrialization takeoff? What is needed for that?
I think there's no simple answer to that. If you look at and I agree with the argument that is being made by our colleague from China, when the Chinese economy will drop this, low-tier jobs, most of them will indeed relocate somewhere. And some of this is finding itself within Asia in countries like Cambodia or Vietnam. But also Africa stands a chance because we have relatively low wage labor force. And so this can take up some of the so-called low industry, high labor intensity manufacturing kind of production functions. And so secondly, if you look at the deficiency and the demand for industrial commodities, Africa itself is consuming a lot of industrial products. So if we indeed are able to leverage on strategies such as putting up special economic zones and attract high technology infrastructure and investments, then we are able to not only provide or meet this inadequate technological demand and industrial demand, but we're also able to have it at relatively affordable costs. So this, in some way, Africa stands at an opportunity, both as a consumer, but also as an economy that takes part in the manufacturing of some of these commodities.
All right, Chris, Africa stands at an opportunity here, though. Can it become a viable production base, and what would be needed to make that a reality?
Well, I think the potential is there, and I think we would make a lot of money if we could realize that potential. But as I say, we've been talking about that potential for a long time. The critical thing is skills development does need to come up to scratch. It can't just be labor intensive. There's got to be high value added, sight towards high value added manufacturing as well at some stage in the future, because we see labor intensive can shift from one place to another quite easily. In other words, it's not a permanent solution at all. One needs to actually get economic policies right, and one needs to get the institutions right, that people have confidence in those policies, that they'll be stable and that the policies are supportive for actual business, that we can get corruption down. That actually is important from a trust point of view, so that that investors have confidence to come into the country.
And we leave it there for the moment. To my guests, David Owira in Nairobi, he's an independent economic analyst. Chris Hart in Johannesburg, global investment strategist at Standard Bank Wealth and Investment. And Professor Ho Wenping in Beijing. She's a research fellow at the Institute of West Asian and African Studies. To you all, thank you. Now, the establishment of special economic zones like this one in Ethiopia has already had a major impact in industrialization and boosting the investment outlook on the continent. But as experts say, moving forward, both China and Africa will have to engage in active partnerships and ongoing discussions to fully reap the benefits of this venture. To join us again next week for more on Talk Africa. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Goodbye.